The Real Talk Live. I'm Ben Ferguson, and as promised, we have John Cottadella. He's here today. I wanted to thank Brianna Basuto, who's filled in the last couple of days. What a refreshing age group she is from, and she told us what her life is like and how she sees the government. It really opened my eyes, too, because it's kind of different from what I'm from, but I understand it. In fact, we talked about Travis Scott real quick, and she said the reason she thought everything happened was because everybody was kept up for the past 2 years. And I know how excited I get when I go to a concert, and that totally made sense, man. Everybody's there; they want to see their favorite artist, and they get crazy and they rush, and they didn't have security implements or measures to stop that from happening. So, again, not your fault, Travis. I just want to throw that out there. Anyway, today I thought we would talk. We talk about usually things that happen to me. The drug addiction, business school things, different situations that happen to me. I want to talk about. Coping. I want to talk about mental health. I want to talk about what the last 2 years has done to me and a lot of you out there. And I think talking about it is really good, and that's what the show's all about. I was thinking it was hard enough for me. I at least we live in Santa Barbara, which arguably is the most beautiful city in the entire world. So when things got rough for me, and as we all know, the news hyped everything up and instilled all kinds of fear. We didn't know at the very beginning. All we knew was we walked into the grocery store and all the rice was gone. I mean, that enough is to say, we don't know if World War III is coming. We don't know if this is all going to ever end. And it was scary. And I could always just ride down to the beach and take a walk on the beach. But then I was thinking about all the families that live in Mexico, live in Chicago, that live in 3-story, 1-bedroom apartments with 3 kids, and what the mom is filled with fear about her children, what was going to happen. And we've been through a lot in the last couple of years. So, and I know that, John, you have a wife and 3 kids, and I know you went through something similar to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's all that stuff was happening. My wife was in nursing school at the time.
But they were saying at the beginning, they were saying you keep your children indoors. And I know as a kid, my 2 brothers, if we were kept inside, that wouldn't have been a good thing.
Yeah, fortunately, my 2 younger kids, we could take them for walks and that kind of thing and keep them mellow. But I don't know if you remember this, but this is like a memory that stays, kind of ingrained in me. But we went paddleboarding during that time, during the COVID thing. Right. And it was right when they opened the beach, and you and I were out there, and there was a jogger running the flags. And she said, "Hi, humans." And remember, you and I had a chuckle. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like...
I don't remember that.
But I just remember thinking, wow, that person's so excited just to see another human.
Oh, so is that it?
I mean, that was, she was just so excited to be able to talk with us because, you couldn't get within 6 feet of anybody. Otherwise, they'd run right
I remember
away.
the very beginning of it. I was downtown, and I saw a lot of German tourists come to Santa Barbara. And those beautiful buses pull up down on Cabrillo. And we were fully into the pandemic, and they were, I don't know if they probably shouldn't have made the trip, but they did. And when I was talking to you on the phone, you remember that?
Yeah.
And they all came up to me, and they looked at me real worried, like I was going to yell at them. Probably some people had, like, how could you do this? We have a pandemic. But I'm like, hey, are you guys from Germany? And they said reluctantly yes. And I'm like, hi and welcome. And then they got, remember that? And you heard them all as a crowd, they cheered. Because somebody was finally being nice to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one kind of heartbreaking thing that I remember seeing is little kids, like a 3-year-old with a mask on. I mean, that was just, wow. It's like, and you think so there's 2 thoughts. Is the government filling our brains with stuff that's, I mean, you can only think about so many things. And if it's filled with fear, we can't really do too much else.
Sure.
I don't want to think that that's the case.
I hope not.
Yeah. I hope there was a Wuhan flu mix-up. Someone spilled a beaker and it happened. But to think of the fear, to think of the old folks in this town. There's a lot of old folks, and all the stories about the assisted living facilities with all the people dying. Can you imagine? Old folks are going to worry anyway.
Well,
right?
And like you said, everybody was on lockdown. So, even like, say, like your spouse, if they're husband and wife and the spouse was in assisted living, you couldn't see your spouse. And now you find out they're
and how many people passed away that the family couldn't actually go see.
Precisely.
Or if you're older, say you're 70, 80 years old and you're in an assisted facility, you don't want to see anybody. No. Because all you're seeing on the news is how many people are dying, and they're all dying in this. Yeah, it's been a rough time. I was looking into history 100 years ago. 100 years ago, they just finished, I think it was the Spanish flu. So we had the exact same pandemic 100 years ago. So it's pretty interesting. You think that this is a brand new thing. But anyway, so also I want to mention, I went up north and I was with some friends, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say the way they acted around. We don't have a homeless not a lot of homeless people in town here. In larger cities, in Portland and Seattle, there are. And they were talking about this one girl I knew from high school, and she was just saying how disgusting they are and all this other stuff. And I'm looking at them, I'm like, when you're a kid and you say, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a doctor, I want to be an astronaut. You don't hear them say, I happen to be homeless.
Right.
It's something that happens, and 90% of the time, it's a mental disorder.
Yeah.
Because they think, oh, you're just lazy, you want to sit and smoke weed and go get a job. Well, they would do anything just to be normal for one day. And I think when I see that, when I see somebody that has a house and a car and is yelling at somebody that's living on the streets and going to the restroom in their tent, and is that just straight ignorance?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of them are definitely not there by choice, and if they are, people say,
nobody's there by choice.
They want to be there. Well, what led them to that?
Right. Well, there's
choice?
different levels of mental illness.
Right.
So if you're halfway there, then you probably want to be with people that are like you. I mean, like equals like. You and I are like each other. That's why we're friends. So if you're like that, you probably want to be with those types of people. But to think as a society, I think we look back, in 100 years from now, they'll look back and see how we dealt with our homeless people, because that's really how you're measured as a society, is how you take care of your people. And it blows me away. If you see an older lady yelling on the corner with natty hair, and she hasn't slept, she just looks rough, right? And she's yelling at somebody that's not there. And that makes you feel uncomfortable. But the only thing worse than that is having to be that lady. And so I think back in the 80s when Reagan, I liked Reagan for a lot of things. I don't want to say I'm a Republican or a Democrat, because I really am both. I pick and choose.
Sure, parts you like, yeah.
But when they closed all the facilities, when I was in college, we went on a field trip to Sonoma State University, and it was a huge commune where they had mentally ill people, and it was really nice. There was a huge line of people, and they all had $1 in their hand, and it was candy bar day, and everybody was excited. I'm like, hey, this is cool. And they had all these different places and bunks for them to live. And all of a sudden, for cost reasons, so he could, develop more nuclear devices, he shut all those programs down across the United States. Then decided to put the people in the dilapidated hotels in most cities. Most cities have, turn-of-the-century brick hotels. Sure. So they'd stick them in the hotels, out of sight, out of mind, right? And give them a few $100 to buy food. And then real estate went crazy in the 80s and 90s, and they decided to let's tear down these buildings and build skyscrapers and literally put them on the streets. So I don't know how. I think we're having Randy Rouse on Monday, and I'm just gonna. I don't get political on the show except for stuff like this. This is human stuff, right?
Yeah, that's just you're a resident here. That's part of life. You just want to know what are we gonna do
instead of voting the next beautiful bridge with all the let's get maybe a little bit more in the homeless. This town, I have a friend that worked at a place called Path that actually took it's really cool. They take a homeless person and they find out why they're homeless and they counsel them. They have this truck that comes by this one area twice a week, and the truck is a mobile shower. Wow. It's pretty awesome.
No, that is cool.
So these people show up and they know that somebody cares about them. And then they try to find out what the situation is, and they can only just take care of a few people out of thousands. But they actually have placed these people into housing from the street, counseling. They wash them up, they give them food, and they find out what's going on. And if we could just figure out a way to do that in big cities, that would be so nice.
Yeah, I mean it's not just with homeless. I think it's just with everybody. It's just getting that momentum going. You know what I mean? Just sharing.
Well, to different levels.
Yeah.
To see, I mean, if you see somebody living in a bush, I went to listen to this. I went to back in my real hard when I was trying to get sober. I went to a lot of meetings. One meeting I went to in a real rough area, and there was homeless people that said they were so grateful to be sober, and the only problem about living in the bushes is they didn't like spider bites, but other than that, life was good. And I'm like, holy crap, that's a grateful dude. And then I'd go to a meeting over by Cottage Hospital where all the Hope Ranch ladies are, and one's not right, and one's not wrong. It's just the diversity. This lady was talking in the meeting, and she started talking about, she walked out and she found a scratch on her new Volvo, and everybody passed her Kleenex, and I'm just like, that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. Not that the poor lady got a scratch on her Volvo, right, but this guy is grateful for he's got spider bites on his face, and she's crying because she got a scratch on. Anyway,
all perception.
And I think drug addiction is when you see homeless people, there are a lot of drugs, but people are just trying to maintain some kind of semblance, trying to be normal for an hour.
I was surprised at how much I don't know. Before we never really used the word mental health in a positive way, but how much people kind of needed that help, during COVID, once you kind of started going to the stores and people had that distance and you really started to see that they hadn't had that, just interaction. I think you started to really notice how much it took an effect on them, just not being around.
I can remember people in the store and I wasn't paying attention. I was standing too close to them. They're like, "Hey man, 6 feet." I'm like, "All right, it's cool."
People you've known, for years and years, you see them on the street. Hey, how was it? Whoa, hey, man.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the thing with mental health, I think the more you talk about it, like Real Talk Live, and this show is to talk about stuff, and I love it. And that's how people, I'll talk about myself. That's how I got sober, was when I heard other people talk about themselves, and I could relate with that. I'm like, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And that took me from dying to being sober. So it's powerful, being honest about mental health. We all have issues. Now, when I 20 years ago when I got sober, I always smoked pot before bed. That helped me sleep, right? I drank, I did whatever. If I had a rough day, I'd get stoned or whatever. Well, now I've sold all that to the good people who got me sober. So I can't do that. And I still have, I'm Ben, I'm happy. I always talk about how wonderful life is, but I get depressed sometimes. And I've even told you, where I don't have anything left. I can't go smoke weed. I can't drink beer. I can't drink out. I can't do anything. You know what I do? It's food. I'll go to the donut shop, and I always eat pretty well, but I'll spend out. I'll go get a bag of donuts, and I'll go get a pizza, and I'll come home like a little depressed. That's how I get through it.
But you're a swimmer too, man. You get out there and exercise and get your...
Here's what... So when I had to quit doing everything, I had a hard time sleeping. So this is how I designed life. I had to change life. I had to change everything. So I figured I have to get up in the morning and exercise for a lot of reasons, to stay calm, to stay even, to stay healthy, and to be tired enough at night to go to sleep. So that's kind of way everything worked out, where I get up in the morning, and swimming is a huge part of my day now. And if I eat right and I swim, I'm happy. I'm a happy guy. But sometimes I fall into a rut, sure, just like everybody, and it's normal.
Yeah,
some more than others, but luckily it's just once in a while, and it's usually when I don't get enough sleep or something. So funky happens.
For you personally, what's kind of your formula to keeping like good mental health? As far as, like you said, exercise, one of them help. Yeah. Okay,
so in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, they have this thing called HALT, HALT. It's hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Any one of those, or all of them, will put you. If you're hungry, you got to get food, because that'll really bring you down. If you're angry, that's not cool. One of the mainly, and I don't ever think I always say I'm single. I love my life. Sometimes it gets lonely. Sometimes you do stuff, and I talk to my mom a lot. Who's in heaven, and I know she's there because she told me before she passed away. And she goes, whenever you have something, she goes, don't worry about it. Whenever you go through something, you have something great to eat, because I'd always call her and say, man, this is good food or whatever. She's just tell me, I'll be right there. And anyway, that's the phone, but we'll let it go. So I know she's there, and the more I see stories about people interacting with other dimensions, I know for a fact she's there, and I can feel it.
I think just a trip that went off right when you started talking about it.
Maybe she's calling in. I don't know, but sometimes people look at me, and I know a lot of people. They I got it together, but there are some times where I'll tear up, and things get hard.
So what do you do in those times? Like, do you
get through them? You pray.
Do you exercise more? What do you?
I do a lot of praying.
All right.
That's all I can do.
Yeah.
And it works.
Because I know you're a big meditator too, right?
I meditate every morning. Yeah, 5-10 minutes. In fact, this morning I didn't, because I had to rush up. I wanted to go for a swim before we did the show, so I'd have a clear head. But it doesn't happen often. But when it does, crying, I guess, for a man to cry, that's not cool. Not...
in our era,
right.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
but
it wasn't.
Sometimes it helps get whatever's in your head out too.
Yeah,
I don't mean bawling in the corner. I just mean tears in your eyes.
I just mean getting the release out. Just getting that. Yeah.
And we've been through a lot the past 2 years. Everybody has. So I think it's okay to do that. And there's a couple of prayers that I've been taught that are lengthy, and I won't go into them now. But I always do those, and they always help me out.
Now, is it stuff like "Please help guide" or
it's
"Get
everything.
me there"?
Yeah, no, it's guide me. It's always guide me.
I like it.
Yeah. I'm not in control, and I don't want to be in control. I want to be led.
Yeah.
And usually it's from missing a night's sleep. I travel a lot, so if I get home late and I can't sleep and I get up and I still go swimming because I'm still not smart enough to realize, hey man, you didn't have enough sleep. Don't go swimming. But I'll do that anyway, and after a while, I'll get. Today, you know, I just did that trip last week,
Yep.
and today I feel great, so I'm back to normal. But anyway, I just want to talk about that because I think it's important, and I think it's important for anybody out there to hear that. It's totally normal. We're humans, and that's part of being human. And
Yeah,
whether
it's-
you have it together, whether you don't, if you're home, if you see a homeless guy, man, I mean, you don't run up and hug him, but just to be aware of that situation. That could be you, that could be your brother, that could be anybody, and it's not their choice. It's where it's just where they happen to be in their life right now.
Yeah, just their current reality.
Yeah, and feel grateful that you have what you have, and you may want to say hi to them. You know, you may want to. I don't know. I don't have the answers. I know that I like Santa Barbara because they have the company called, not company, but the PATH, PATH, and that's geared towards helping them, and that's awesome. You know, and that's what I'd love to see more of that, instead of people say, look at those poor homeless people, how disgusting. I mean, what's disgusting is the lady driving around the Range Rover saying that.
Yeah, it's. You know, I got to honestly say, some of the nicest people and kindest people I've met have been in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
You know, growing up in LA, it's seeing
Well,
the
I said what
homeless
I've
thing
noticed
down
about
there
Santa
versus
Barbara,
here.
there's a lot of educated people.
Yeah.
And they used to say, when I first got here and I was 20 years old, they said it's either newlywed or nearly dead.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, where am I? I'm not nearly dead. But anyway, that's the majority of the people. And then everybody in between are like, you know, just, they come in and it's expensive to live here, so a lot of people don't stay. But I first got here and I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I love Seattle. That's where I grew up. So I'm gonna figure out a way to live in Seattle and live here. And this is like a resort. Santa Barbara is a resort.
It is.
So when I get depressed, when I get something, I go, Jesus, I mean, flip the TV on and look at what's going on in other parts of the country and different countries and look how beautiful it is here.
It's a bubble. You know, you hear that a lot, but it's
Yeah.
it's like a really, really big resort. You got the mountains, you got the beach. I mean,
Yeah, it's all right here. I was thinking the other day, where can I go on vacation? It's time for vacation. I'm driving down Cabrillo as I'm thinking that, and I look up and I see 3,000 palm trees. I'm like, you know what I need to do is go to like Detroit for a week every year.
Exactly.
Just kind of flip it around.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we really have it. But being able to go up to Seattle in a city, I love cities. And yeah, Seattle's beautiful. The people are cool. A little on the liberal side, but you know what? That's what makes it cool, I think.
Yeah, each city's got their own energy. It's the
Yeah.
whole win and Rome thing, and you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a different vibe, a city versus a resort. Because resort, this is almost not real. I mean,
Yeah.
as a city,
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right.
it's
I
too
mean,
good to be true.
I mean, there's a urgent care every 7 steps. There's a CVS
Yeah.
on every
The
corner.
thing about here
It's-
is you go to Costco, anywhere you go, it's 5 minutes away.
yeah,
When I was in Arizona the other day, it was a 25-minute ride. It was 90 degrees, and I'm like, what am I doing? I don't want to do this. I want to go back to Santa Barbara.
I used to, try to travel, and it just didn't make any sense. Say if you had 2 or 3 days off and you try to get somewhere far, now I find myself doing way more staying here.
Yeah.
And people.
Well, like you and I go paddleboarding. We can go every morning if we want.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, we could not every day, but yeah, I mean, just about.
You know that most people save their money and work their tails off all year long to come spend 4 or 5 days, what we do every day.
At the busiest time of the year when they're not, and they
Yeah.
don't even really know true Santa Barbara.
And for us to complain about when we don't get enough croutons on our salads, shame on us.
Hey, I used to be one of those guys. When I first moved here,
I
thought,
still am. I don't want a certain amount. I mean, I you know me.
I get it. Yeah.
I go to a
You know what
restaurant.
you
I
like.
don't. I mean, I don't want to be forgotten about. I want somebody to serve me food and be there when I need it and not come up and interrupt me while I'm talking. Which is we talked about that the other
Yeah.
day.
It's Santa Barbara's an awesome place, man. I don't think I personally never planned on staying. This was the pit stop, right? I'm going to stay a couple years, and but it's
People are. I don't want to say people are chill, but people are chill. People are cool. Everybody's got it going on here.
it seems like
Usually.
everybody's working a little more towards a common goal here.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more professionals here. I mean, like Brianna Basulto that we had the other day.
Mm-hmm.
There's that culture that I've never really
Yeah, just that
paid
age
much
group
attention to
and-
because it's not part of my world.
Yeah.
But having her here and hearing about her side of things and how she saw policemen and what she thought about the government and all that was awesome. So, and that's where we're growing our brains by having people like that on our show. And the reason we had her was because intuitively I knew that this girl was just genuine, and she would say it was on her mind, and she came back and she was so cool. She'll come back the next month or so. She said
it's a cool perspective, like you said. We always talk about the different camera lenses or the different, It's
well, to be
angle.
in her, she said where she lives, she sees policemen. She's not. When I see policemen, I'm good. I love cops because they've always been. Well, they've always been good to me, and that's the way I was raised. Unless I was drunk or something, and they took me to jail, But that was my deal. Yeah. But overall, I feel protected when I see policemen. So, imagine having a world where you feel like the opposite.
Right.
They're there to get you. I mean, that's not cool.
Yeah, it's the opposite of what they're there to do. So yeah.
Is it because you're white or you're Hispanic or I don't know. Whatever the deal is, I don't know if as a kid we grew up to respect policemen, and they had Officer Friendly come into the classroom and all that. And it wasn't until later that I found out that if you do bad things, they're not always friendly.
Well, that happens.
But I also understand that was me, so I don't put that on them. Oh, we have a loud car going by Ferguson Studios here.
Jeez, you get Hell's Angels living next door?
So how's your family coping with keeping normal?
We are trying to stay outdoors as much as possible. I think that was kind of the one thing that kept the family together. We're not huge animal people, but we've become kind of big farm animal people lately. So
that's cool. I'm gonna, I blabber so much, but that's why I have this.
No, this is your deal, man.
I heard somebody the other day, and I have a certain feeling about zoos, and this guy, somebody asked him what his favorite animal, and he goes, "Well, I'm kind of split. I kind of don't believe in zoos, but on the other hand, I really like to go see the lions." And I'm like, "Oh, so what you're basically saying is you're full of crap. So either you do or you don't." So here's my thought on zoos. When I was a kid, I loved going to the zoos. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think if you look at 100 years ago, things that were normal, and you're like, what? How could they have even done that? And then I think, what do you think is going to happen 100 years from now? That they're going to look back on today and say, Jesus, they did that?
I bet zoos are going to be holograms.
Exactly right. I think zoos are, if you they showed a picture of a lion in this little cage. That's putting somebody in prison. It's exactly what it is. So let's put a bunch of people in prison and let's let the animals come by all day and stare at them.
And I know there's different levels of zoos and sanctuaries and all that type of stuff.
Well, the sanctuary, that's one thing.
Yeah, but there's guys that call themselves sanctuaries too. I think that Joe Tiger guy or whatever, he was a sanctuary, wasn't he?
I don't know. I think they say they justify it. It's almost like bullfights. We won't get into that, but. They justify it by, the children get so much from it. That's not cool in my book. You don't have an animal suffer, so a bunch of little second graders can laugh at it. Yeah. That's not cool. Nowadays, you're right. We have holograms. We have laptops. We can get a lion in front of our face in about 2 seconds.
Well, it's like, the old days, they used to break horses, right? Like break their spirit, this is essentially it. Now, there's a little softer approach, kind of making friends with the horse and connecting that way, that's just one huge difference there.
Wasn't there where they somebody was telling me this horrible story where they put a horse, they tied up and they put a bucket of water just far enough away where it couldn't get. Did you ever hear about that?
No. I hear of stuff like that all the time in the rescue world and stuff like that. Yeah, where it's.
So tell me what you think. What do you think though in 100 years? I think bullfighting will be one. I think we used to throw the Christians in the lions. We don't do that anymore.
I think
and that was totally accepted.
Yeah, zoos will definitely be gone.
Now let me get real quick. The bullfighting. Now, here's my thought. It's just my thought. That's all I ever have are my thoughts.
Now, when you say bullfighting, you're talking like
I'm talking about bullfighting. I'm talking about
there's different bullfighting.
Well, I'm talking about where you put swords in the bull, and
like Spanish style,
and it slowly is tortured and dies. Right. So here are my thoughts. My thoughts are generally those happen in third world countries, and third world countries are generally where the government suppresses the people, and the people have nothing, and they're suffering. So when they see something else suffer, it kind of makes makes them feel comfortable.
Right.
That's what I think, and I understand that.
I could see,
and I think with evolution, it will. People will go, whoa, that's not cool.
Yeah, I'm
That's
okay.
my thought.
I'm okay with the other kind of bullfighting, like you see in Texas. That's like a steer and a person, and there's no swords or nothing, and you literally wrestle. So, bull's got a chance.
Right, but my thought is people have choices. animals don't.
No, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
But I mean, if you look at like I said, the Christians being thrown to the lions, that was a good afternoon back in the day. Yeah. So what we've accepted and what we've grown apart from.
Sure.
What else is going to be different in 100 years? Smoking cigarettes is going to be like they did what?
Oh yeah, no, cigarettes. Gas cars, I think.
Gas cars,
or just engines, combustion engines.
Yeah, I think you're right. I sure hope so. I don't.
Because
there's a lot more Teslas around here.
There's still homes burning oil, right? Like, as far as I know. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of little. When I was driving through Portland, there's a lot of little towns with like oil barrels on the side of the houses back in the old days. I think eventually, Elon Musk is one of my heroes, and he's putting these grids all over the place. So I think in time that will take out the oil, and you won't have that anymore. We're running low. Got a couple of minutes left. Okay. Anything else you think? Think about this now.
I think education's going to change.
I think education. Yeah, I think it is changing.
I think it already has, but I think it's going to really evolve.
Yeah,
I think.
You hear Elon's story about he's not having grades. He built a school for his own kids, and they're.
That's one of the things that I've thought about for years.
Yeah.
You know, having 3 kids, they learn stuff differently at different levels and ages. So why kind of force them, to get it by a certain age?
Yeah, well, that's the way they did it back in the 1700s. They'd have all these universities, and they were pretty smart, but they didn't have anything else. That's all they did was read.
Yeah, but that's when you sent your kids away. So you had basically like cattle that you had to,
That's
school
when you go to Vermont
numbers.
this summer.
Yeah.
And the children are in Connecticut going to school, and you're having your lavish parties.
Yeah, now we're on Zoom, and they got tablets, and they're doing their school at the back of Chuck E. Cheese or whatever, right?
Yeah. So what was the one other thing I was going to say? That people, what was I going to say? It was 100 years ago, or 100 years from now. The homeless situation.
I truthfully hope that that's definitely handled.
Well, not only do we have enough room to build facilities, but we have more than enough money. So that's one thing we'll look back and we'll go, wait a minute, we let them sleep on the streets?
Yeah.
Yeah, that will
it's just getting them help. Just getting them, a therapist or a
maybe
person.
It's getting more of these politicians, if they have their, maybe homeless people in their family, it's gonna be hit a little close to home, and they're gonna understand it a little bit more. Because nobody wants to see the lady yelling at somebody who's not there. That's frightening, like I said before, but it's more frightening to be that lady. So let's try to figure out why she's doing that and help her.
Yeah, if we can get that done sooner than 100 years, that'd be.
Yeah, we can do it today.
Yeah,
we can go out right now today when we're downtown and just say hi to somebody.
Yeah,
I know when I'm having a bad day, real quick, and somebody smiles and says hi to me. It doesn't matter who they are, what they are. It changes my day.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're having just somewhat of a bad day or you're feeling nervous about something, put a half smile on. You'll be surprised what happens.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. We have about 10 seconds left. John Cottadella.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And we look forward to again Monday morning if you're going to be watching us live, Mayor-elect Randy Rouse. Until then, I'm Ben Ferguson.